I do feel like I have very, very good friends. And I feel like on my best days, I'm a very good friend. Um, but again, like I said, I've really curated my life to have wonderful people in it, and and I think friendship, like good friends, are they're gold.
Yeah.
They're true wealth, and so I feel that if I've done something right in my life, it's surrounding myself with good people.
Okay. So you've always been a good friend, do you feel like? That's always, but
No,
you've
I
just,
haven't. I haven't. Sometimes I've gotten selfish or thoughtless. But speaking of uncomfortable conversations, I've had some friends who have called me out, and rather
yes.
than defend myself, I've adapted and course corrected.
Hi, this is Kara. You're watching Really Famous. You are about to get to know Josh Radnor on a really intimate level. He is real about lots of different topics, from TV to his personal life. Let's go. Like, how do you see the progression of yourself? The evolution of you personally.
I mean, I could talk about what aging has been to me and what I've enjoyed about aging, because I also think it's a great public service when people speak well of aging,
Yeah.
because I think again there's such a youth fetishization and focus on being young and um, one of the things, and this is something I really dealt with in my film liberal arts, was one of the things that I do feel like you have to grieve as you get older is, when I was in college or even grad school, I felt like everything was in front of me, all possibilities, all roads, right? And there was something very exciting about having this feeling of limitless options, even though it wasn't limitless, but it felt like it was. And as you get older, you make decisions. You make decisions about where you live and what jobs you're going to take and who you're going to be with and and the options start to narrow, right? Like there's this closing or narrowing of things, and your choices have consequences, right? Like I'm never gonna undo How I Met Your Mother. Like that is a feature and fact of my life for the rest of my life, and most of it, thankfully, has been really good and positive. But it also, like I said, it has its challenges. So, but I do think that I was slightly miserable in my 20s in a way that I'm just not now. And when I talk to people in their 20s, most people I know who are in their 20s are panicked, confused, overwhelmed, scared. And I like being able to tell people I was too.
Yeah.
I think there's something really nice about reminding people, like, just because the culture says this is your youngest and sexiest and best decade, like, do not believe them. It's kind of like in high school. I gave the graduation speech. I was the president of my high school, and it was all about let's not believe that high school was the best years of our lives. Like, let's make you know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, let's not fall into that, because
Yeah.
let's remember that it was hard, and there were challenges. So I feel like some of the mercies of aging, and when I was younger, I was very nervous about aging. I thought that adulthood was this constricted, kind of burdensome, mortgage paying kind of thing, that a lot of the adults that I saw in my town growing up, they didn't look all that inspired to me. They
Right,
looked a little
right.
put upon,
Yeah.
and and so I really wanted to gear my life around staying alert and curious, and in some ways, like what I call the qualities I cultivated in college, which were reading new things and learning new things and trying new things and traveling and doing all these things. And I've largely been able to do that. And I find, like, especially being in my 40s, I still can get hung up on the opinion of other people. So that's always been an Achilles heel of mine, but it's way less acute than it's ever been. And I feel, I've failed, I've been humiliated, and I've lived,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to write another song, right? So, and also knowing that everything is usable. If you make things, everything is usable. Ben has this great term for, like, a show that doesn't go well, where you
Uh-huh.
feel like the audience isn't really connected to you. Or he calls them character builders, and I really love that, just because it's such a psychologically smart helpful way to look at something rather than, oh, that was a disaster, meaning like, oh no, it's a character builder. Like we're stronger after that one, right? So I just feel like my friend Richard Rohr, who's this Franciscan priest who I just adore, and I think he's one of the best spiritual voices of our time now. But he has this book called Falling Upward, and it's all about basically becoming an elder, you know? And I find that there are certain things about aging that I'm really taking to, you know? Like I love caring less. I love being more selfless. You know, the kind of 20s, when you're in your 20s, this obsessive focus on yourself and your future and what's going to happen and who am I going to be with. It's like, it's so exhausting.
Yeah.
You know, so there's just something nice about also, I don't have any toxic people in my life. Like, you know, when you're in your 20s and you're like, you've got some friends that you're like, I don't even like this person. Why am I friends with them? And I feel like you end up calling those people, you know, CUL, is that the word? Like you end up, you know, getting rid of those people and really deciding who are the people that feel nourishing and light you up and bring out your best qualities. So, you know, it's not to say that aging doesn't have its difficulties, but I do feel like it's offset by enough blessings that it fascinates me. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm still alive. I'm still in this body. The body's changing a bit, but I have these memories, and I can't believe that we're still here, and I'm still doing Josh Radnor. This is unbelievable that the Josh Radnor thing is still going. You know, I hope it goes for a little while longer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to look back and be like, oh, well, I was like 46 and talking about all this, because really, relatively, you're super young. You know what I mean? Like, it's all relative. Like, yes, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, you know, Al Pacino was looking at you and thinking,
right,
this
look at
kid
this
who has so much... Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. I love talking to and meeting these older, really genuinely older people too, because they just have it's like we're talking about, they've lived so much ups and downs, and everything was character building for personally, you know, and I just think they're so interesting, and they do seem generally happier. I mean, I can look back to something I studied in grad school about, you know, if you lived your life well, then you will gain wisdom at the end of your life and feel satisfied and not scared of death. You won't fear death. Whereas if you didn't and you have regrets because you didn't live your life like you wanted to, then you do get fear. And then that's a different case. But more often than not, the people I've spoken to have done it in that very positive way.
Yeah, and it's also you're talking to people who did what they wanted to do largely.
True.
Right? And I think that is one of the secrets to life, because when we feel that someone chose our life for us that we didn't choose, I think you can get very cynical and misanthropic, and kind of, you know, bitterness can set in, right? And that's a really sad thing. I find that older people who, you know, there's two ways to age, right? You can get more open and more curious and more amused, right, by all of it. Or you can close down, you can harden, right? You can soften or you can harden. And I find older people who are drowning in resentment and grievance, and if only those people would stop doing, you know, that's a really sad way to age. I think it's very asphyxiating, and I'm doing everything I can to age well.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too. I think because there is this fear of aging too, but there are so many examples of how you can age in that way, and they're great, and we should be seeing more of them. Like we should be seeing more of them on screen and in real life. Right?
I really agree. I think I would love to have more aging faces on screen.
Yes.
You know, and I think that when we hide our elders, it's actually not a good sign for society. You know what I mean? Like I think we should really be super curious about what people have to, what older people have to say. Not all older people. I mean, I think we have to choose what voices we want to amplify. But I also think, you know, one of the things that I, as a young actor, I did was I said, I kind of chose my heroes, right? And there were people I had met and worked with, and I thought, I want to be like them. You know, I worked with Judith Light right before I did How I Met Your Mother, and we did a play together, and we're still very dear friends. And she was just like the kindest, coolest, most open, loving, empathetic person. And she was also brilliant. And I thought, oh, you can be a brilliant actor and the nicest person in the room. Like, you know, like I never bought into the myth of like the tortured jerk genius. Like I always thought, if you're a jerk, I don't think you're a genius, you know? So I think we have to choose our heroes wisely, you know?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good heroes out there like that who can inspire, and I think they are there. But you're right, you have to sort of like purposefully decide, I want to be more like this person, or I want to see this person, be with this person, and learn from this person more.
Yeah.
And they are out there. I think that's funny because this is one of the things that I see as I get older is I feel like I'm seeing more of those people than I saw before. I don't
well, maybe
know
you're
why
becoming
that is.
One of those persons.
Well, maybe.
So you're seeing them. It's like pregnant people seeing pregnant people everywhere.
That's right. That's right. Or you buy a new car and it's everywhere on the street.
Yeah,
it is that same thing. That's so interesting.
Yeah, that's a good thing to notice. I always love working with older actors just because I find their relaxation. I remember some of the older actors I've worked with, like David Margulies or Peter Garrity, like just these great. Well, David passed, but Peter, I did this play, this Civil War show called Mercy Street for PBS, and he was just. I don't know why he was so captivating. He was just. It was just because his presence was radiating like, and he had this impish kind of playful quality that I don't really associate with like older people, but he was just amused and hilarious and also not overworking. A lot of older actors, if you watch them, they use like almost the law of least effort. They're not doing that much. Richard Jenkins is like that, who's been in both my movies. You know, there's something really to be learned about. They know exactly how to do the least amount to have the maximum effect.
Interesting.
And I really appreciate that.
Like you were saying about seeing these faces on TV as well, like if you look at European television and film, you're seeing real people there. It's not the Hollywood look.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because you feel, though they're stories about real people, so aren't you going to feel them more if they look real?
I mean, I think so. I even as a songwriter or a music fan, I always respond more to a kind of cracked voice, you know, like a voice that has some weathered, lived in quality rather than, you know, a perfect opera star who's going to nail everything. Like I appreciate seeing a life lived in someone's face, you know, like those lines in our faces tell stories about who we are and where we've been, you know. I have a line in a song that says, "These gray hairs on my temples, they tell me where I've been. I don't know where I'm going. I just hope they let me in." You know, and there's something about putting that on view, right? Like not trying to cover that up. And it's hard. Look, aging's hard. Being on camera is hard. And I think that's something that also people don't understand, you know, that like I've noticed as I've gotten older, there's a part of me that feels like acting is ridiculous. It's humiliating. Why am I putting on this costume and acting like a person I'm not? And I also, there's a part of me that's getting a little shy. And the pandemic hasn't helped, you know, like part of my, I've always battled between introversion and extroversion. And as I'm getting older, my introversion is kind of taking the lead.
Interesting.
So there's something about, you know, being behind the camera or even behind a guitar that is more, it's just, I don't always want to be looked at, you know? I sometimes get really shy and I sometimes get really allergic to the gaze of the camera, you know? And it's always been a struggle, but it feels particularly acute now. I haven't acted, you know, since Hunter's Wrapped, I think. And that's the longest I haven't acted since I was a teenager. So, you know, I've been texting with a couple cast members like, you're gonna have to teach me how to act. Like, I truly am gonna have to figure this out again.
I don't think so. I think it's gonna be like riding a bike. We'll do. You were saying about the gaze of the camera. So tell me about that. How does that feel like? When you're aging, are you looking at things in yourself? Like, are you seeing yourself and saying, "Oh, what is this about?" Or is it different?
I don't know that it's necessarily about aging as much as it is about like, there I am.
Okay.
Like, there I am with nowhere to hide, you know, and I'm not as, life doesn't provoke my vanity the way being on camera provokes my vanity. You know what I mean? One thing that did help me was I directed 2 movies that I was also in. So I sifted through every take I did. And it wasn't that I thought, oh, you look amazing or you look terrible. It was just I kind of got clear on that's what you look like. That's what you look like from this angle and this angle and this angle and this angle. And I just got used to it. But I still get startled. You know, I sometimes I feel like, this is just really honest, sometimes I feel like I look really good on camera. And other times I'm like, why do they let me on camera?
Sure.
You know, like I look
normal.
I look like a potato. Like, why am I on camera? And but I've gotten used to it. And I do know that the actors that I most love and admire are not physically perfect specimens. They're just people who have really interesting faces and deep eyes that tell stories really well.
Yes.
And that's the kind of club I would want to be in and hope to be in. But there is something about the camera that is so revealing, and you can't lie, and you have to check your vanity at the door, as hard as that can be. One thing that I found when I was doing Hunters, I have this big mustache and these big chops, and it served as and crazy outfits, right? I'm playing this movie star, Nazi hunter, and I found that when I would put on the costume and put on obviously the facial hair stayed, but it gave me this bravado that I hadn't had in another role. Like, I really felt fearless in that part. And it was because it didn't feel like me. It didn't feel like I was riffing. I mean, obviously it was a part of me, but it felt like we did. I've always hated photo shoots. Like, I don't like that you have to do these big gallery shoots in costume, you know, and they put them all together for the poster and for trailers and all this stuff. And I've never liked them. But the gallery shoot for Hunters, where I had to be smoking and looking tough and shooting a gun and doing all this stuff, I had so much fun. And I remember I told my manager, I said, I hate photo shoots, but I loved that one. And I realized it's because I might hate photo shoots, but Lonnie Flash loves photo shoots, my character, right? So he had a great time, and I was more letting him kind of guide the experience than me. And it was one of the few times where I didn't feel like rattled by it. I actually enjoyed it. So, you know, I'm open to all of this changing, but I do... you know, on How I Met Your Mother, I thought the other 4 actors just had a much more like enthusiastic relationship with the camera. They had all been on camera longer than I had before I started. Maybe Kobe hadn't, but I just, you know, I would get shy sometimes. I would be like, I don't want to be on camera today. And then the more I wrote, I was like, maybe, am I a writer? Am I like actually an actor who is more of a writer, like my DNA? And it's just something I wrestle with, you know, this kind of look at me, don't look at me thing. Because when I haven't acted for a while, I do miss it. But then there's another part of me that's like, I don't miss it, you know?
But you know, it's kind of like you have a good balance then, right? I think it would be, because you are doing that, watch me, don't watch me.
I've had to create that balance, right? Like, I've had to say, I won't be getting everything I need from acting. I'm going to need to do these other things that make me feel just as creative, but less observed, you know?
Right. So I guess, right, I'm just thinking back to the cast on How I Met Your Mother. So what? So we're talking about like Neil Patrick Harris and Allison Hannigan and Jason Segel. So they were more like, they just seem more like, okay, I'm ready for this, or
they had just been doing it. They didn't seem to and I might be making all of this up, but they just seem to have a less ambivalent relationship with being looked at and being on camera than I did. Now, I got good at being in that show and being on camera, and sometimes, you know, I was supposed to do a Broadway musical, and I ended up not doing it because I really wanted to do a second season of this show, Mercy Street, because I really started to feel like I was getting good at being on camera, and I wanted more of that. So, it's exciting. Like when I'm a part of something that I feel like has just been edited beautifully and I'm really in it. I like, it's really exciting. But I like having done it more than I like doing it. If that
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Right. Normally, I would like to ask, like, what are some life lessons that you learned from being in the business? But I feel like you already answered a lot of that. So what about life lessons about relationships? We didn't really talk about relationships much.
Oh, man. Well, I've never been married. I'm 46. I'm in a relationship now, a really, really wonderful one. And I'm learning a lot about the value of having uncomfortable conversations. I think Tim Ferriss said this thing about your success in life is directly proportional to the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
Interesting.
And I really am appreciating the truth of that lately. I feel more honest in this relationship than I've ever been, and she is too. And we just are able to have these uncomfortable conversations without feeling like the relationship is threatened and that it's going to ruin, it's going to blow everything up, or we're going to get in a big fight. And it's just we've been pretty brave about that. So I'm really enjoying that. And it's funny. I've been on all these things, and How I Met Your Mother's about relationships, and my movies are largely about relationships, and the things I'm drawn to as an artist are about relationships. A lot of songs I write are about relationships, and yet I think the reason I'm drawn to them is because it's something that still mystifies me. It's not something I feel silly saying, like, gather around and let me tell you what I've learned about relationships.
Okay.
Like I'm still
Figuring
in process. I feel when it comes to relationships, an area that I feel more wisdom around is friendship more than romantic relationships. But good romantic relationships are friendships ultimately.
Uh-huh.
But I do feel like I have very, very good friends, and I feel like on my best days I'm a very good friend. But again, like I said, I've really curated my life to have wonderful people in it, and I think friendship, like good friends they're gold. They're true wealth, and So I feel that if I've done something right in my life, it's surrounding myself with good people.
Okay. So you've always been a good friend, do you feel like? That's always...
No,
but
I haven't. Sometimes I've gotten selfish or thoughtless. But speaking of uncomfortable conversations, I've had some friends who have called me out, and rather than defend myself, I've adapted and course corrected, right? Like I've said, okay, all right, cool.
That's huge then, because, right, if you had gotten defensive about it, you would never learn. You would probably lose the friendship and never learn how to have a deeper friendship or a long-term friendship or whatever kind of friendship you wanted.
Yeah, and also trusting this person's not attacking me because there's malice in it. This person is saying something to me because they love me.
Wait, there's more. Josh reveals a lot more about himself in part 1. If you missed it, no biggie. I put a link in the description below, and you will get to know Josh on an even more intimate level. Or just click on this card right here. Don't forget to drop a comment. I'd love to read the comments. And tap the like button, subscribe, and share this with somebody who you think would really like it. Thanks for watching.